Hello and welcome to this video on McAfee's next generation protection technologies, Real Protect and Dynamic Application Containment, also known as DAC. Before I begin, I'm just going to show you an actual piece of ransomware detonated on an unprotected system. I grabbed this out of our labs, so let's see what it can do. As you can see, I have a file on the desktop with important stuff in it. Of course, the ransomware will seek it out to encrypt it. Let me go ahead and just run our sample. Now that it's running in the background, it's cataloging all the files on the system and it's generating the keys to encrypt my files. It'll take just a few seconds to do its damage, and we all know how much of a pain it is to recover from ransomware, if it's possible at all. There we go. Now here are the splash screens telling us to pay up. When we try to open our file again, all we have is an encrypted version and we can no longer access the data. Okay, so that was the worst case scenario where we didn't have any protection or if our protection didn't catch it. Let's take a look at a system protected by McAfee Endpoint Security in our new Adaptive Threat Protection Technologies, Real Protect and Dynamic Application Containment. Here's a system protected by McAfee ENS. We can see that Real Protect actually comes in two flavors, Real Protect Client and Real Protect Cloud. We'll test out Real Protect Client, also known as Real Protect Static, first. It uses machine learning to automate classification of malware attributes so that we can identify them before they run. It can completely block malware even before a signature is created from it. Here, I'll show you an example. So here's our file again with our important data. We'll take a look at it again after we've run our ransomware. I've created 3 copies of the ransomware that we had run earlier. I just wanted to show our multiple methods of detection and remediation. Before I run it, I'm going to make things a bit more interesting by using a hex editor to modify a few bits to create a new unique piece of malware. This makes it more difficult for standard signature or hash-based detection methods to identify it. Okay, now that we've made the changes, I'm going to run our first sample. As we can see in the bottom right, it was caught. In short, a file that we've never seen before has been instantly caught by our Real Protect client technology. We can see it in the log as a Real Protect client clean event, and this file was blocked completely even before it ran. Okay, so we've just blocked a new piece of malware without needing a signature update. Let's try our next layer of protection. McAfee has also created Real Protect Cloud, which is also known as Real Protect Dynamic. It also uses machine learning to automate classifications, but instead of just looking at the attributes of a file, it is able to trace file events in real time for behavioral classification. Since the very definition of malware is that it performs malicious actions, we can trace a process's behavior and make a very confident identification of malware. After we've convicted something as being malware, we can then make a genealogy-based repair, such as deleting any files that were dropped or removing any registry keys that were made. Alright, I've talked enough. Let's see it in action. I'm just going to disable Real Protect Client so that we can catch it with the next layer of protection, Real Protect Cloud, and now I'm just going to run my second sample. So when we run it, it'll take a couple of seconds, but it's also caught. This detection is done post-execution, and when we look at the logs, we can see that it's being cleaned by Real Protect Cloud. Again, this is using the cloud to perform behavioral analysis of the file. No matter how obfuscated malware is and able to bypass attribute-based pre-execution detection mechanisms, malware will by definition perform malicious behaviors that can be more readily identified post-execution. McAfee is not just doing pre-execution based detection or just post-execution, but we're doing both while other anti-malware vendors will miss half the equation. Okay, great. As you can see in our logs, we can clean up brand new ransomware with Real Protect, but we're not done yet. In addition to Real Protect, we've also introduced Dynamic Application Containment, also known as DAC. Next, I'm going to disable Real Protect Cloud and rely on DAC for protection. It allows unknown applications to execute, but prevents them from making known malicious changes on an endpoint. Since it allows good applications to run, it reduces the impact to businesses. I'm just going to run our third variant. When I run it, I don't get a pop-up that says the file was cleaned, but I see a DAC block event in the event logs. Essentially, that means that a file had been contained and is restricted in what damaging behaviors it can perform. When we look at our original file, it's still okay. Now, even though DAC didn't kill the process, it did send the file to our sandbox solution, Advanced Threat Defense, for analysis. ATD is able to perform dynamic and static analysis to identify malware that may have evaded typical endpoint defenses. Since ATD takes a few minutes to analyze a file, it can be used in conjunction with DAC to contain a file's malicious behavior, protecting patient 0 from infection. When we take a look at EPO, we can see that ransomware.exe has automatically been analyzed by ATD, and its reputation is set to known malicious automatically. After the file is set to known malicious, using Threat Intelligence Exchange, any instance of the file running on an endpoint is killed and removed. It doesn't end there though. The file is no longer able to execute anywhere in the environment. In essence, the entire organization is inoculated from this threat automatically without any administration effort.